The wind was biting that morning. Gray clouds hung low over the grocery store parking lot, and the air carried the scent of rain that hadn't yet fallen. Rachel tugged her thin red hoodie tighter around her shoulders and pushed the row of carts toward the entrance with stiff arms. She had only been on shift an hour, but the cold had already numbed her fingers. She wasn't supposed to be working outside. She was a stock clerk, not a cart collector, but the new manager had barked something about teamwork and shoved the task at her. She didn't complain. Rachel never complained. Inside the store, the heating worked fine, and the smell of baked bread and brewed coffee greeted customers. But out here, in the wind, in the biting chill, she was invisible. Just another small-town grocery clerk doing what she had to do to pay the bills. She was turning back toward the entrance when she heard it, a sound so fragile it barely rose above the wind. A cry. A baby's cry. She stopped. The parking lot was scattered with vehicles, but there weren't many people outside. Most had already rushed in to escape the cold. The cry came again, this time sharper. Urgent. Rachel didn't hesitate. She darted between the cars, scanning left and right. The crying was coming from a parked SUV, windows slightly fogged. She rushed to the side window and gasped. There, strapped in a car seat, was a baby no more than 6 months old. Red-faced, squirming, and screaming. The car was locked. No one was around. Rachel looked up and down the lot. No mother. No father. No one. Her heart pounded. She tried the door handle, hoping maybe it was left unlocked, but it didn't budge. She knocked on the window gently, then harder. Still nothing. Then she saw it, the baby's tiny lips trembling, its breath ragged. And on the back seat floor, a tipped-over bottle, leaking slowly into the carpet. The baby was hungry. And cold. Rachel ran back into the store, breath caught in her throat. Call 911. She yelled to the front clerk. There's a baby locked in a car. The other workers froze. One of them jumped into action, grabbing a phone. Rachel didn't wait. She sprinted to the customer service desk and told the manager. He followed her out, asking too many questions, fumbling over what to do. Seconds felt like hours. Inside the limo parked across the lot, a man in a charcoal suit lowered his sunglasses slowly. His sharp eyes had been watching the girl run. Watching her from the moment she heard the cry. He had seen it all, but said nothing. Who is she? He murmured to his driver. No idea, sir, the driver replied. Grocery clerk. Probably makes minimum wage. The men didn't answer. Rachel was back by the car, now kneeling beside the baby's window. She kept talking softly, her voice shaking but kind. It's okay, sweetheart. Help's coming. I'm right here. The baby's cries softened for a moment, then rose again, shrill and scared. Then, finally, the wail of sirens. The police and ambulance arrived almost at once. The officers didn't wait. They shattered the window carefully and opened the door. Rachel leapt back, hands to her mouth, tears in her eyes. The paramedics moved fast, checking the baby, wrapping him in blankets, putting a new bottle to his lips. Just in time, one of them said. Rachel stood there, trembling. She didn't even notice the man in the limousine stepping out until he was already beside her. He was tall. Imposing. His tailored coat flapped in the wind, and he looked out of place in the grocery store parking lot. Are you the one who found him? He asked. Rachel blinked up at him. I heard him crying. He was alone. I didn't know what else to do. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he nodded. Thank you, he said quietly. Before she could reply, he turned back toward his car. But something stopped him. He glanced back once more. What's your name? He asked. Rachel, she said softly. He nodded again. I'll remember that. And then he was gone. Just like that. Rachel watched the limousine pull away as the baby was taken into the ambulance. She didn't know who he was. She didn't even know why he cared. But something about the way he looked at her, like he was seeing past the red hoodie and the grocery badge, left her shaken. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Customers came and went. No one mentioned the baby. No one mentioned the man. But somewhere in the city, in a tall glass building, a billionaire father stared out a window and whispered the name again. Rachel. And the next day, her world would change. Rachel didn't expect anything to change. Saving a baby was the right thing to do, no reward needed. But when she arrived at work the next day, something was off. The manager, who usually avoided eye contact, was waiting for her at the door. "There's someone here to see you," he said, puzzled. "In my office." Rachel's stomach dropped. Was she in trouble? She walked in slowly. The moment she stepped into the office, she froze. He was there, the man from the limousine. But now, in the full light of day, he looked even more powerful. His black coat was gone, replaced by a navy suit tailored to perfection. A silver watch glinted on his wrist. He stood when she entered, offering a warm but serious smile. "Rachel," he said. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." She sat cautiously. He didn't waste time. "You saved my son yesterday." Her eyes widened. "Your son?" He nodded. His nanny left him in the car while she ran inside. She was only supposed to grab formula, but she got distracted. Fired immediately, of course. Rachel's mind reeled. Why was he in a regular SUV? "Anne, you were watching from the limo, weren't you?" "I followed them," he admitted. "I'd gotten off a conference call and saw her leave the car. I stayed behind. Wanted to see if she'd be quick." He paused, voice tight. "I didn't expect her to leave him crying in the cold." Rachel shook her head. He was freezing. Hungry. "I know," he said. "And you saved him." She looked away, still overwhelmed. "Anyone would have." "No, Rachel," he said softly. "Not everyone would have run toward a problem. Not in the cold. Not knowing what might happen." She didn't know what to say. He took a deep breath. "My name is Alexander Hale. I own Hale Enterprises, real estate, resorts, tech, media." Say blinked. Everyone in the city had heard of Hale Enterprises. "I've been searching for someone trustworthy," he continued. "Not just for business. For life. For my son." Rachel's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Alexander smiled, the corners of his eyes softening. "I want to offer you a job. A full-time, live-in position as my son's caregiver. Not just as a nanny, but as someone I trust completely." Rachel's heart skipped. "But I don't have qualifications for that. I stock shelves." "You have what matters," he said. "Instinct. Heart. And courage." She laughed nervously. "This is crazy." "It's real," he said. "You'd live in the guest wing of my estate. Your own car. Full health coverage. 6 figures annually." She stared at him, stunned. He leaned in slightly. "And it's not just about the job. My son has been missing something. Love. You gave him that in 2 minutes. I saw it." Rachel swallowed hard. "This feels too big." "Don't say no yet," he said gently. "Come meet him again. Just once." 2 hours later, Rachel stood inside a mansion with ceilings higher than any home she'd ever been in. A maid led her to the nursery. And there he was, the same baby, eyes wide, smiling when he saw her. Rachel felt something stir inside her chest. She stepped forward and picked him up. He nestled into her arms like he belonged there. Behind her, Alexander watched silently. His son hadn't smiled like that in weeks. "You see it, don't you?" he said. Rachel nodded slowly. "Yeah. I do." She turned to face him. "All right. I'll try." The weeks that followed changed everything. Rachel moved into the estate. She bonded with the baby, learning his schedule, his favorite toys, his sleepy songs. But more than that, she got to know Alexander. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who had loved deeply and lost. His wife had died during childbirth. He had thrown himself into work and wealth to fill the silence, but it hadn't worked. Until Rachel. They started having dinners in the kitchen instead of separate rooms. Long walks through the gardens. Laughter over bedtime stories. One evening, as she held the baby and rocked him to sleep, Alexander stepped beside her. His voice was quiet. "You saved him," he said. "But you saved me too." Rachel looked up, eyes shimmering. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he whispered. "That's what makes it real." He took her hand, hesitantly. She didn't pull away. Months passed. The love between them grew slowly, like spring after a long winter. And one morning, standing in that same parking lot where they first met, Alexander got down on one knee, with the baby in his arms, and asked her the question that would change her life forever. "Rachel, will you marry us?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. Her voice shook. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. Baby bottle sparkles. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, subscribe for more emotional tales, and share it with someone who believes in kindness and unexpected love. Sparkling Heart. 2 years had passed since Rachel had first heard that desperate cry in the parking lot. The world had moved fast, but Rachel's heart had stayed grounded, just as humble, just as kind. Life with Alexander and little Ethan was not without its challenges, but it was beautiful in its honesty. Ethan, now 3, had a habit of running barefoot through the halls of their estate, his giggles echoing like music through the marble corridors. He called Rachel Mama without hesitation now, not because someone taught him, but because love had. One rainy afternoon, Rachel was sitting on the edge of Ethan's bed, reading him the same bedtime story they had read every night for months. But that night, Ethan looked up suddenly and asked, "Mama, why did you find me?" Rachel's heart squeezed. She brushed his hair softly. "Because you called me. I heard you even when you didn't know you were calling." Ethan smiled like he understood something deep in his little soul. And he fell asleep in her arms. That night, Alexander found her sitting in the nursery still holding Ethan, tears glistening in her eyes. "He asked me why I found him," she whispered. Alexander didn't speak at first. He just sat beside her and placed a gentle hand over hers. "You saved me too, Rachel," he said after a long silence. "I didn't know I was drowning until you pulled me out." They sat together for hours, watching their son sleep. The baby who had once been left alone in a cold SUV now had a mother who never left his side. But Rachel's mission wasn't done. She had grown the foundation beyond what anyone imagined. The Rachel Hope Foundation had opened childcare centers in 5 major cities, created emergency grants for single parents, and built grocery stores in low-income neighborhoods that offered job training and fair wages. People often asked her, "How did you go from a shelf stocker to a national leader?" She always answered the same way. By listening to a cry in the wind. By not walking away. One day, during a press event at a new shelter sponsored by her foundation, a teenage girl approached her with trembling hands. "I'm pregnant," the girl said. "I thought I'd be alone. But I saw your story. I watched your video 100 times. You saved a baby once. And I thought, maybe you'd help me too." Rachel wrapped her in a hug. "You're not alone anymore." Word spread. Rachel Hale became a symbol of real change. Not because she was rich, but because she remembered what it felt like to be invisible. Her story reached Washington, D.C. Lawmakers invited her to speak. Her speech sparked a movement. Policies changed. Childcare became a national conversation. One senator whispered to another, it took a grocery clerk to do what no one in power could. Back home, Alexander watched all of it with pride. But his favorite sight was always the same, Rachel in the backyard, barefoot in the grass, holding Ethan, both of them laughing like the world belonged to no one but them. And one evening, as the sky turned orange behind their estate, Alexander walked up behind her and kissed her shoulder. "Want to try for one more?" he asked. Rachel turned, surprised. "Another baby," she laughed. He nodded. "I want Ethan to have someone to chase through the halls." She touched his cheek, eyes sparkling. "Let's give him the biggest team of giggles this house has ever heard." And so, their family grew. From the cry of one baby in a parking lot, to a home filled with laughter, hope, and love. A home that reminded the world that one act of kindness is never just one moment. It's a seed. And when watered with courage and love, it can grow into something that changes lives, laws, and legacies. Rachel Hale never forgot who she was. Because who she was, saved who she became. Baby Globe showing America's if you believe in second chances, in listening to those who cry without words, and in the power of one brave heart. Like this video, subscribe for more emotional stories, and share it with someone who needs to believe in goodness again. Sparkling Heart. It was a crisp winter morning when the past came to visit Rachel Hale, not with a whisper, but with a headline. Nanny who left baby in car sues billionaire CEO for unlawful termination. Rachel nearly dropped her coffee mug when she saw the article. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through the story on her tablet. The woman, her name was Tara, had lawyered up. She was claiming emotional trauma, reputational damage, and that she had only left the child for a minute. Alexander read the article behind her, his jaw tightening. "This is just noise," he said, wrapping an arm around her. "It'll pass." But it didn't. The media loved drama, and suddenly Rachel was pulled back into the world she thought she'd left behind. Not as a hero this time, but as a target. She manipulated the situation, one talk show host said. She saw an opportunity and took it. Who quits a minimum wage job and ends up married to a billionaire? Another smirked. Too convenient. Rachel didn't cry. Not this time. But deep inside, she felt the sting. Not for herself, but for Ethan. He was old enough now to hear whispers at school. Old enough to understand when a classmate said, "Your mom only married your dad for money." And that broke her heart. One evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Rachel sat on the porch staring into the dark, quiet fields. Alexander joined her, handing her a blanket. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "I didn't ask for any of this," she whispered. "I just heard him cry." He took her hand. "That's what makes you different. You didn't ask. You gave." She leaned into him. "I can handle it. But what about Ethan? What about his future?" Alexander looked into the night. "Then let's remind the world who you are." The next day, Rachel agreed to a national interview, live, unedited. When the cameras rolled, she didn't defend herself. She didn't throw Tara under the bus. Instead, she told the story again. The way it happened. "I was just a grocery clerk. I wasn't thinking about rewards or consequences. I saw a baby crying alone in the cold. I acted. That's it." The interviewer pressed. "And the accusations that you married for status? For wealth?" Rachel smiled. "I married him because he was the first man to see my worth when I wore a name tag instead of a diamond. And he loved me when I was invisible to everyone else." The video exploded online. Again. But this time, it wasn't just emotional, it was powerful. Struggling mothers, retail workers, single fathers, and everyday people shared their own stories. Hashtags trended. Hashtag from clerk to queen. Hashtag believe Rachel. Hashtag kindness matters. Even politicians who had once doubted her stood up in support. Then came the court ruling. Tara's case was thrown out. The judge cited clear evidence of negligence, including store footage, time stamps, and phone records. Rachel hadn't taken anything, she had given. The night the verdict was announced, Rachel walked into Ethan's room, sat on his bed, and held his hand. "You'll hear things one day," she said. "But I want you to remember this, your story began with love. And that's all that matters." He nodded, big eyes full of trust. "You're my forever mommy." She kissed his forehead, tears running down her cheeks. Later that night, Alexander knelt beside her in their room, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it. "I know we're already married," he said, "but this is a ring for the woman who faced the world not once, but twice. For the woman who saved us all." It was a new ring. Simpler. Etched with one word, courage. Rachel slipped it on. "I don't need anything more," she said, smiling. "But I'll wear it every day." And she did. Not for the cameras. Not for the critics. But for every person who ever doubted their worth. Because she had learned that courage wasn't about standing tall when the world cheered, it was about standing firm when the world doubted. And she would never forget that it all started with a baby in a parking lot. Broken Heart Family Woman Boy, if this chapter moved you, please like the video, subscribe for more real feeling emotional stories, and share it with someone who needs hope right now. One act of courage can change the world. Sparkling Heart. It had been 4 years since Rachel had saved Ethan in that cold grocery store parking lot. 4 years since she looked into a baby's tear-soaked eyes and made the choice that would forever change her destiny. And now, standing at the entrance of that same store, renovated, brighter, with new shelves and polished floors, Rachel Hale walked in not as a clerk, but as a keynote guest. The store manager, an older woman named Janice who had once been her supervisor, met her at the door with teary eyes. "We never forgot," she whispered. "You were the one who reminded us that humanity comes before hurry." Rachel smiled humbly, wearing jeans and a blouse despite the cameras trailing behind her. She wasn't here to look important. She was here to honor her roots. This event wasn't a press stunt. It was a celebration, the opening of the Rachel Hale Child Care Corner, a free on-site daycare service for all employees, funded by her foundation. Something she had once only dreamed about during her overnight stocking shifts. Inside, employees clapped, some wiping tears, others hugging her like an old friend. Rachel stood beside a simple wooden podium set up near aisle 9, the same aisle where she used to shelve cereal boxes. Her voice trembled just a bit as she looked out at the familiar faces and unfamiliar ones too. "I used to count change behind this register, wondering if I could afford dinner," she said. "I never thought I'd leave this place with more than a paycheck, but I did. I left with purpose." She paused, eyes misting. "A baby's cry changed my life. But what I didn't know was that I was crying too, in silence. Tired, unseen, and afraid I'd never be more than what my name tag said. But someone saw me. And I learned that love isn't always born in ballrooms. Sometimes, it starts in a parking lot, with a choice to care." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. Then Ethan's little voice rang out from the back, "Mama Aya." Everyone turned to see the now 4-year-old boy running toward her with open arms. Rachel dropped to her knees, laughing as she scooped him up. He buried his face in her neck. "I missed you." "I'm right here, baby," she whispered. "Always." Alexander stood.